So yeah, wanted to go over a few more things, and then actually might be a good idea to even ask some questions during this video so that, because somebody else might have the exact same question. And again, if we can get it recorded, that's always nice too. Go back to our observation tower. We'll get it full screen this time. It's looking pretty good. So yeah, we talked a little bit about the 3D modeling last time. And then there was even a couple of questions today. Whoa, bro. Watching the content. Lost my train of thought. Yeah, just wanted to cover a few more things today. So I'm going to actually delete some things, get them out of the way. Those were kind of just examples anyway. I wanted to get a little bit more into the 2D, so I do remember making that other copy, but it looks like I accidentally put it over the other one, so I got to move this one first, then show. Yeah, I failed to mention also that if you type hide, it'll hide the object, but you do have to type in show to show all those objects. I forgot to give you the, to give it back. However, that one is a little intuitive, I guess, to say the least. One of the other things that I forgot to mention are some of the attributes of the viewports. So, I mean, one of them, of course, is that you can double click. Another thing is that, of course, you can even change the size of them. However, I did want to express that you could right click and you can change it to anything you want. So you can go right click, set view. You can look at a plan view, top view, bottom, left, right, front, back perspective, set up a 2-point perspective, so we'll talk about that one pretty soon. And then of course even an isometric, which is relatively new, at least for Rhino 7. So that's kind of nice because that used to be really actually kind of hard to get. We had to put in these crazy commands to actually get those kinds of things. Anyway, another feature is, of course, that I haven't really covered, sort of just maybe intuitively, is that each of the view can be reset as well. So like just in case, you actually want the top over here and you want the front over there, it's kind of entirely up to you. So anyway, just in case, sort of late to the party on that one. Sweet. Let's see. Yes, so two-dimensionally I wanted to talk about some things. I really recommend doing the drawings really all together at once. So what I mean by that is really trying to treat it the same way that you would a drafting table. I even used to sort of make my drafting table in digital space. So I would make like a 30-inch by 60-inch table, and then sort of calculate those up. But yeah, for some reason, I've always liked to be organized, and I'm seeing some of you guys go astray from even, like, say, the layers. However, it is interesting to hear that you guys are at least thinking about the organization and the complexity of this program, because, like I said, that being organized while you're doing this really pays off, to say the least. But that means also this digital space as well, and keeping track of those things. So I've got my desk space. I wanted to mention that you can either make the elevations by making the model first and then sort of make 2D, but there's nothing, of course, wrong with doing it yourself, right? Just as you would say analog. So for instance, I'm going to do my elevations. I could set up my ground line and I could do really all of the elevations at once. For some of us, it looked like you were possibly already even finished with some of the drawing work, and you could even get into further detail, right? You could start to do railings, you could start to put people in it, you could start to put trees in it, and a lot more information. But I just wanted to express again some of the commands of doing it all at once. So for instance, I've been using offset to kind of go 1 foot at a time, if you will. But another tool that we can use is called array. So array. So what's kind of neat about that is I can immediately duplicate in a grid-like fashion. So for instance, it asked me at first, number in the x direction 1, right? it'll say number in the Y direction and number in the Z direction. So I do need to be cognizant of those directions. Since I actually just want a bunch of elevation lines, I don't really need any in my X. So 0. The number in the Y, I could say, well, I want them to be 40 feet, so I'm going to want 40 of them. And in the Z direction, I don't need any of them, so 0 again. And then I'm going to choose the Z direction. Right, so, and you'll see that it creates all those 40 lines, but it's basically determining a scale factor. So if I want those lines to be 6 inches apart or 40 inches apart, right, I think you guys can see that I could easily make all of my construction lines for my nice elevations, because I guarantee it, I'm going to want to see construction lines no matter what these drawings are. So you can either use them really, right, and actually make your construction lines first, or you can kind of fake it. Right, I could add the construction lines sort of later, but that seems a little at least disingenuous, right? So in my case, again, just choosing the scale, so I'm going to go with 12 inches, enter. Oh, sorry, it does it for each. There we go. Right, of course, have my 40 lines. Of course, I have to press enter. Don't accidentally hit escape like I've done sometimes. But what's nice is, again, I have my construction lines. I can take them all, and I can even, oh, do I even have a construction lines layer? How dare me. And of course change those. I like to do it, you know, kind of at the time. I could take my original line. It looks like it accidentally did make a copy. Yeah, that's alright. As long as we just have, you know, the lines that we need. So yeah, at least using array. Another thing that at least is a cool feature that I might not really need right now, but if I was doing some sort of spiral or needed to calculate based on like a radius, right? So like a circle, you can also do a polar array, right? So if I had a, you know, a line, and I do polar array or array polar, I can choose a center. I can choose, say I want 360 stairs, you know, around this, you know, this angle. And of course I want it to go 360 degrees. It's pretty interesting, you know, I can make a lot of things, right, very quickly. So that's of course polar array. Maybe I shouldn't have done 360, it's kind of maybe a little redundant. Maybe something like 5, or, you know, the number of steps in a spiral stair might be useful as well. Another tool that might be useful, let's go ahead and kind of just draw my elevation, right? Because there are some basic things that I do already know. So for instance, I know how tall it is, right? 40 feet. So I can type in, well, maybe it's a little taller than 40 feet, maybe it's 45 feet by 25 feet. And maybe I accidentally did that in the wrong direction, but that's okay. So I can go ahead and rotate it. And it looks like I'm getting actually a little stuck on my construction lines a bit. However, sometimes they can be useful, right? I can use them. However, if they're getting in the way and you just don't want to accidentally move them or something, you can of course always lock them. But what's kind of nice about this is I can go ahead and set up all of my elevations, right? There's my first elevation, second, third, and fourth, right? Another thing I wanted to go over was that you can trim multiple. So say I didn't want all these construction lines between my elevations or something like that. I can even copy those same boundaries. And I'm going to go a little arbitrary because, like I said, I like to try and add that sort of human style to it. Right? So the more arbitrary that I can be with the arbitrary things like construction lines, the better. Right? But what's neat is when we can do a lot of things at once. Right? So I can get all of these boundaries. I can hit trim. And I can get rid of, you know, essentially the things that I don't need. Oh, looks like there is multiple lines in there. Is it because it's locked? It should trim. Let's find out why. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, I guess it's because the layer is locked. If it's locked, obviously it can't get, can't be heard, right? That's kind of good to know, because I could have accidentally gotten rid of some lines that I needed, right? So of course I have to unlock the layer, and let's try again. There we go. But yeah, when you can trim multiple things at once, it definitely can make things relatively easy. Another useful command that I think I was showing somebody yesterday is extend. So for instance, maybe I wanted say these were all stair lines, and I actually wanted them to come up to a particular line, right? And it's a weird line. Maybe it's, it goes back like this. What I can do is I can extend all of these lines, say my stairs, to a line, right? So for instance, extend, enter, and I would choose all those lines that I want to, of course, extend to it. Hopefully useful, right? That's extend. But yeah, to continue with what we were doing here, again, polyline I think is going to be most useful, right? I can even do the same thing, obviously I have my grid elevation wise, but I may need actually a side grid. So right now I have a rectangle. Of course I can explode it, and here's my 25 feet. So instead of drawing 25 lines, I mean that sounds kind of redundant, or even sort of guessing at sort of the feet in between, I can divide the line. So D-I-V, right? Divide. And I can divide it into a number of segments. In my case, I want to do, well, 25, right? If I want 25 feet. And bam, I've got every single one. Now I can take that line and of course copy it perfectly. I can even make sure that my point is on, right? I'll take off my midpoint, that way I don't accidentally get another. And of course make another grid. So quite literally I have my foot by foot ratio. What I'm trying to say is we can even look more complex with the digital tools that we have, because let's face it, even this right now, what I've done for all four would have taken a little while, a lot longer at least, analog, right? But what I'm saying is that a lot of that information, we can always fade it. We can always use it to actually heighten some of those contrast comments I gave you guys last week, right? Whether you decide to use them or not, maybe they get in the way, you decide to not use that layer, that's fine. But at least you have that option. So, two-dimensionally, yeah, the next thing I wanted to go over was obviously the stairs. So, creating a polyline. Actually, I want to change all these red lines real quick. They're kind of in the way. Let's go ahead and change that to construction. Again, just right click and change object layer. Voila, right? And of course I'll lock it again, that way I don't accidentally move anything. And I'll go ahead and start making a stair essentially with a polyline. So I can essentially count my stairs, or if I knew the level that I was actually starting at, I could start there. I can go down 6 inches, enter, go across, enter, go down 6 inches, enter, go across, and so on, right? I could even take that piece and copy it. Obviously I'm just kind of getting fancy and making up my own design really quick. Really to just kind of express a point that we can draw these things, we can even turn them off and turn them on, that way we can see them better, right? And make sure that things, I don't know if I covered this point, but I did want to make sure that I at least address it. It's worth addressing twice. Remember that your layers at the bottom, guys, means that it's actually at the bottom. So for instance, usually the first layer that it'll click on if two lines are hovering over each other is of course the one closest to the top. So if you wanted your construction lines at the top, you of course just drag them up there, right? Anyway, can't remember if I covered that one though. That's just about it for the 2D, so I'll open it up for questions. Were there any particular two-dimensional questions that anyone had? And if you're afraid to explain it, I mean, you can use, elementary terms. The box won't do this, or, or how do I make a door? Does anybody know how to make a door? Know how to make a door? Let's make a door, right? So if it was my plan, right? We just kind of honestly take it literally. So I would make a wall first. I would make, what I need. So maybe I get my midpoint. Maybe I want that door to be in the middle of the wall. So I could offset. Let's say that door was 3 feet, so 18 inches on each side of that midpoint. I've got my space of the door. The next thing I would need is a small rectangle that represented the actual door. So I could do about 1.5 inches thick by the same width that I chose, so 3 feet, so 36 inches. I can turn it a little bit, because like I said, things that are too perfect often just look off. I can make an arc and choose both points, right? And I can choose it like that if I want to get the exact midpoint. There's actually several ways to make an arc, but right now it's basically saying select the center point and arc it. Right. Voila, we have a door. Yeah. What about making a door or window three-dimensionally? So how many of you guys are actually 3D modeling this? Trying to see how many hands are out there. Anybody? Or plan to? Okay, I'll go over it then. Yeah, because I think we were mentioning last time that it clearly has some potential. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not asking you to suddenly learn 3D modeling. But this is a good opportunity to try, right? Especially if something as easy as stairs, and you're not worrying about program or circulation or all the other studio elements that you usually have to worry about. We don't have to worry about site, topography, nothing of that, which of course we cover in computer graphics. So it's a nice way to just kind of look at the object and study this object, and even make something maybe even new, right? So as I was mentioning, you could still further design these observation towers. But to go over it, let's jump into the three-dimensional. Like I was saying, there's 100 different ways to do something, and the only really difference between them is honestly how many clicks. So in my case, what comes to mind is actually like Alex's project, where he has these sort of floating boxes. If I were him, what I would do is mask this first. So I'm just going to make up his dimensions really quick, but I'm going to say one of those boxes is 12 by 20, right? And then I'm going to say that it's about 10 feet high, right? And I can make this mass sort of first. I know that he has 2 of them, so I can even copy it. Of course, use both. I know that they're sort of not perfectly aligned with each other like that, so kind of just going off my memory of his project. Maybe something like that. Again, don't quote me on the details. But I would get some things in position, right? Things that I know exactly where they are, especially according to my drawings, right? So which level is which, and so on. But one of the nice things that we can do is we can add further detail to these drawings, whether it be 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional. So like I was saying, in those elevations, guys, I want to see some rails. I want to see at least all the little balusters, all the poles that hold those rails, because let's face it, we really only have to draw one, and copy it, right? But we'll go ahead and determine, like I said, we still have a couple of weeks on this to finish the composition. But to at least dress three-dimensionally, some of the stuff that we can do. And maybe I should have left those stairs, actually. Could have used that real quick. Anyway, we'll make them again. No big deal. But there's a number of things I could do to actually make this spatial. So first thing that I could do is, I could either subdivide it. In my case, what I think might be easiest is to subtract from it. So maybe he has thickness to this box, right? Make one on this side. So almost like a window situation. Let's say there's a window on this side. Maybe something else happened on that side. Why not? There it is. Where is that line? There it is. So let's go ahead and wire cut it. Wire cut this one. Slice it out into. I've now got this cool Donald Judd looking space, right? However, I do want that window on this side, so let's go ahead and get that. Wire cut. I don't want it to go completely through. I don't want two windows, but clearly I got a little bit of the top, so let's scoot that down a sec. Scotch. And wire cut again. Right, and we can get a window. So already right there, we can model, relatively in two different ways. So last time I went over sort of extrusion, right? This time I'm going, well, here's another way you can do it, right? Especially if your geometry works out the way it does. I'm kind of looking at Aldani because, hers is kind of a regular structure at the bottom where she could actually subtract a lot of things and complete all of her structure like that instead of making every single column by extrusion. So what I'm saying is sometimes people like two different ways at least of doing something. That way they can pick the one that works best for them. So this one I would definitely dub the subtraction method, right? Based on, basically just the geometry that we're of course it takes some knowledge of what your measurements are, like of course the thickness of some of the elements or the floor or the ceiling that he already decided. But yeah, of course should work for us. The next thing I wanted to go over was like the handrails. How would you do that three-dimensionally? And the answer is you would do it from the stair. So I have to go ahead and draw a stair real quick. I'm going to go ahead and use the one that I drew last time. And maybe you guys actually have to see this process again. So I'll go ahead and do it again. So polyline, I'm going to go ahead and click on that one. Let's make sure we're in the right spot. And make sure that we're going up. Alright, so 6 inches, 2. And I'm not sure which direction. Yeah, we're going the right direction. 12 inches, perfect. Let's see how fast we can go. Alright, we'll take this piece, copy it. Take all those, join them, copy them again, take that same point. Oh, make sure it's the right point though. Bam. Alright, we got a couple stairs. Let's take that. It doesn't look as high as our box yet, so maybe we need another one. Because it's a little easier to subtract, I'd say, than it is to go ahead and just add some more stairs. Let's get a better view of that. Hold Control or Shift, Shift, join. Nice. Let's go ahead and get another polyline. That's my landing right there, so maybe like what, 36 inches? Oh. We'll go down maybe 12 inches thick. And we'll fake it till we make it, at least for the sake of tutorial. and enter. Now let's make sure it looks good in this view. However, you always want to double check and look at that. Good thing I double checked. I have some things that are off, and it's kind of nice because I can show you how to fix this too. What I would do is I would just select those lines that I needed, right? Especially in this view, and I would make 2D to make it flat. So make 2D. I don't actually need any hidden lines, so I'll just press apply. And what's kind of nice is now I have it all put together for me, right here. Let's go ahead and join those. And I guess we don't really need that piece. There we go. And we could even trim off the stuff that we don't need. Sorry, my screen share kind of gets rid of my lines. There we go. Let's move that out. Let's go put it where we need it. Let's see it in 3 dimensions so we can make sure that it is indeed flat. Nice. And join. Make sure it's all one piece. That way we can, of course, extrude it nicely. So I just need to put it in the right spot. So here's kind of the original spot that it was. So again, I can move it. I'm going to use that same point and mark it up with that same point. From there, I can rotate it. So rotate. And the thing about the rotation is it works per view. So for instance, you know, this is why I think a lot of people just use gumball. It's a lot easier to just kind of move it to the orientation that you need and then actually just move it to the point. Right? Won't let me zoom anymore, so I gotta there we go. Move. Anyway, that's at least how to fix when you mess up. So again, the extrusion method. Lock it into place. We've got some stairs. So what I wanted to mention was how we make rails and handrails actually super easy. The only requirement is that, of course, that we have the stair first. So in my case, like I said, I'm kind of just making up a project really quick. Man, nailed that stair level though. Anyway, let's move it a little bit closer. Make it a little relevant. Another thing that I could do is align these. So if I type in align, I can go, well, I want this face to align with that face, right? Oh, sorry, you have to select the exact. Not sure why it's not working. I guess I can always just put it next to each other as well. I guess a better way of doing that is just go into another view. Nice. I always like to render it just to kind of check and see what it looks like. It's a little above. Could raise it a little bit. Make it the same plane. A little bit of air, like I said, actually makes it look more real. Anyway, got something. So like I said, we need some handrails. So actually the easiest thing to do is to use the stair that you created. So let's go ahead and put that in shade mode. And polyline tool again. All right, polyline. I'm going to choose the point where I need that baluster, right? And like I said, I'm just using this is actually the rail itself, if you will, right? So this is about hopefully as advanced as we'll get. And we will always want to be 36 inches away. That way, of course, that is 36 inches high. Nobody falls over it. We could say the handrail, comes out, it comes in, but we can of course draw that later. Of course, I want those angles to match up, so I'm actually just going to draw this line real quick first, and set up those 2 points. Right? I mean, I also could just draw another line. And connect the two. Right, for the most part, it starts to look like a handrail. I might want to get fancy with it, so again, another polyline. Maybe I wanted to do something like this. Does the thing where it curls back or something, right? I can make it spell my name if I really wanted to. Don't really need that line anymore. I just needed it to establish the heights. So I'm going to take those 3, join them. We'll make this a little bigger so you can see it. And maybe it ends off. Do you guys know why it curls off like that? 12 inches. Do you guys know? They do bump into it. Are architects just like trying to make people's lives worse or something? It's for the blind. So the blind know when the level stops, right? So they know when the stairs are stopping and when the stairs begin. Just in case you ever wondered. Right? So yeah, we're gonna have like a small curl, if you will, in ours. So the next thing that we need to decide is, okay, well, what shape is the profile, if you will, of this handrail? So, I accidentally did it again. I have a point way off into the distance. See how it accidentally goes to that C-plane? This is why you should always draw your things at the C-plane to sort of avoid this. Not a huge deal though. We can take those 2 points and just move them back. However, we'll definitely want to make sure that they're perfectly straight, so we'll go to a different view for that, and they're a little off, so fake it till you make it. There you go. I mean, we could do the make 2D process again, but take some time. So like I said, we need a profile, so I could go circular. So let's say I want to draw a circle and I wanted a handrail that was sort of circular. I could say I wanted exactly 2 inches in diameter. Right, so it's a fairly small circle. I'd want to make sure that it's in the profile as if it was going to suddenly make a tube, right? Another thing that I could do though, maybe I wanted to get a little fancier with what I wanted to do. So for instance, you see that circle right there, of course, in my front view. If I wanted to be at least a little bit more special about it, let's say, I wanted something like curvilinear. And I wanted it to maybe form to the hand of the user. So it's a little bit more like bean shaped. Does that make sense? So watch this. We'll take that and we'll put this here. Of course, we'll make sure it's in the right spot. It does have to be, of course, touching the rail. So you want your profile and the rail. And the next is called sweep. So what we do is we type in sweep. Sweep 1 is what we need. So it says select the sweep shapes. So that is our shape. Enter. Or sorry, we've already have the shape selected, so we don't have to enter it. We have to select the rail. Okay. Holy Jesus cannoli. Maybe it's sweep 2. So this is why you test things. Yeah, that one involves 2 rails. We only have 1 rail technically, so sweep 1 should be it. Select rail, select profile, enter. There we go. So that definitely looks much more like a rail. I think we can all agree. Did you guys see that first shape? It was nuts. That was actually a happy accident. That was a glitch, right? I could have used that actually to be the shape of something else in my architecture if I really wanted to. Anyway, we do have the profile now. There's a couple of options we can do, but I'm just going to go ahead and sweep it. But what's nice is, well, now we have this really unique and could even render out, right, that shape. Very unique shape. So unique it's slowing down my computer. Right? Of course I can cap it. That way we can get a closed shape. And voila, I don't have to draw any handrails. Right? Now of course we could do that respectively for our two dimensionals. Right? And it's actually arguably much easier to draw handrails two-dimensionally than I would say three-dimensionally. Either way, I'll end it there for today. Like I said, I was going to be short. That way, of course, I can answer some questions. But maybe, I guess, you all have very particular questions, maybe. So I will stop the recording here, unless some questions have popped up. Crickets. I need a soundboard for this one. No questions, guys? Straightforward? We'll leave it at that then.